One more time. How's everybody doing? You guys glad to be here? All right. Oh, well, if you haven't figured it out yet, they've said it a few times. I am Pastor Tommy. I am the kids pastor, family pastor, and I like to have fun. So we're going to have fun today. And we're talking about origin stories. If you couldn't tell, we have all of our superhero stuff up here. We have our buildings, our Hulk hands, Captain America's shield. Is that my own Spider-Man suit? Yes, it is. Is that mine? Yes, it is. All of this stuff is my stuff. I am a kid at heart. I like to have fun. But really quick, just because I can't go through all of you guys like I do in kids' church, on the count of 3, I want you guys to yell your favorite superhero. So think about it for a second. This is a big decision. Don't pick the wrong one. Here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay. I heard Thor. I heard Spider-Man. I had heard Superman. I heard Batman. Nice. What? Wonder Woman? She's okay. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Oh, no, there are so many superheroes. It's really cool. I love superheroes. And I wanted to get into talking about origin story because some of the best things about a superhero is the origin story. It's how they became who they are. So the definition of origin story, if that clicks. There we go. Oh, it's all messed up. What happened? The origin story, the definition of origin story is a narrative that explains the beginning of a person, place, or thing, detailing the events that bring into focus an identity or a purpose. So it's all about bringing into focus who they are, what they came from, the things they've gone through. So like you have like Spider-Man. Spider-Man was Peter Parker, and Peter Parker was not a superhero at all. He wore glasses, fumbled around, but he got bit by a spider, and that was his origin story. Or you have Steve Rogers. Steve Rogers was just a scrawny little boy, didn't have an ounce of muscle on his body, but he took a risk on an experiment that brought the good out in him and created him and made him into Captain America, which Captain America is kind of cooler than Steve Rogers. But he wouldn't be who he is without the origin. Same thing with Superman, except Superman's story happens way off of Earth. Before he even got to Earth was his origin, because he was sent here from a different planet. Everybody go, ooh. Sent from a different planet called Krypton. And in that, his origin continued when he met his earthly parents, and they helped create and mold Clark Kent into Superman. So there's a lot of cool things with origin stories, but it's all about bringing into focus. So I want to we already tested your guys' reflex skills, which some of you guys are better than others. It was a little shaky. But we're going to do a superhero vision test. I want to test your guys' vision. I want to see how much you guys can focus in on something. So we're gonna start with something a little out of focus. I'm starting with an easy one, just so you know. So this is a little out of focus. Maybe. There we go. I told you I was starting easy. The next one's not going to be that easy. But as we bring it into focus, it's a little easier to see. In Spider-Man. So give you guys yourself a round of applause. You passed the first test of your superhero vision test. Okay. This one, my young ones, I'm sorry, kids, church kids, you're not going to know this one. But we're going to start with something out of focus. What is that? It does kind of look like a chicken holding a pizza. Oh, it does look like Woody Woodpecker. Okay. Let's bring it into focus a little bit more. Okay. Not 100% sure what that is. Anybody have any guesses? It is Mighty Mouse. My young ones don't know who Mighty Mouse is. Mighty Mouse was a super mouse. Yep. Here he comes to save the day. Super cool. So if you bring things into focus, it's easy to see the origin story. So think about that. Focus. And something you're going to need to focus on is our word of the day. Everybody say word of the day. We do this in kids' church. We have a word of the day. Or we have a word of the week or word of the month. But so our word of the day is faith. Faith is our word of the day. And faith is trusting in what you can't see because of what you can see. Okay? So it's all about not being able to see something, but believing that it's air. There, like air is what I was going to say, but my mouth went faster than my brain. So like air, we have faith that there's air because we can breathe it. We don't have to see air. It's hard to see air. The other day, actually, yesterday, I was outside playing in the yard with Jensen, and there were some balloons that were flying. We did a thing for my mom's birthday, and the balloons were spinning in a circle. It was the coolest thing. Jensen said that they were dancing, and Sam was out there with him too. And so, like, they're spinning in a circle, and it was so cool to just see, like, there are ways you can see something that you can't see. So there are ways that we can see God and have faith in something that we can't see, just like air. The balloon spinning in a circle. I was like, that is so cool. Something you can't see, you can see. So that's our word of the day is faith. So I also have an opening verse. We have a verse of the day too. So our opening verse is Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. If you have your Bibles, you can open your Bibles. If not, I'm going to throw it up on the screen for you, which it's not there. Okay, that's cool. It was there last night. I mean, guys, listen, these mistakes happen, okay? I was really concerned about the confetti working. All right, I'm just going to read it from here because I have it here. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1 is faith is being sure of what we hope for. It is being sure of what we do not see. So, again, something we don't see. Faith. We don't see it, but we believe it because we see miracles happen. And we have checks that show up and fill our bank accounts, and we're like, how did we have the money? I don't know. I've had that conversation a few times with my wife. But, I'm not ready for that. Guys, I don't know what's happening with this right now. I'm just going to, hold on. I'm just going to hang here. We're good. Sorry. All right, so moving forward, because my slides are a little messed up. So it's all about faith. So I want to take you guys through a journey of a couple people's origin stories that are really interesting when you start breaking it all down. And we're actually going to move backwards in the Bible. So we're going to be in the book of Genesis. Everybody say Genesis. It's the first book of the Bible. It's the very beginning. It's where everything starts. Everything starts at Genesis 1:1, but we're going to go to Genesis chapter 37. And this is where we're going to start. And this story is about someone. His name is Joseph. Joseph, and you guys probably know Joseph in the coat of many colors. But a little bit of his backstory is Joseph had a father. His dad's name was Jacob. He was the grandson of Abraham, used to be Abram, and he had 12 sons. This is where it gets a little teetery. So with those 12 sons, he decides, which is the wrong thing for any parent to do, and I can say that now being a parent, even though I only have one kid. You never say who your favorite kid is, just ever. It's just a bad idea. Because then it puts the other ones against, like, my dad has already told me that I'm the favorite, so it's fine. It's just, I mean, you guys know he talks about me up here all the time. All the time. Like, I'm like, man, you don't have to talk about me so much. Like, Dad, I know. But so, and I mean, I have some relation with Joseph. He was the second youngest. I'm the second youngest. I'm the middle, but I'm the second youngest. And his dad was like so much that he was the favorite that he gave him a coat of many colors, which when I got to church today, super weird, on my desk, I had this sitting over here, and I was like, what is this? And it had a note on it from my dad and said, hey, I got you a coat of many colors. This is my second youngest, and you're my favorite. And so he got me this coat, which, I mean, I can put it on if you want me to, but Tori and Allie are going to get a little mad at me. But so, like, gave me this super nice jacket, and I was like, man, I really am the second youngest. I'm Joseph. Oh, it looks nice, right? You got my size down and everything. Thanks, Dad. But where this took a turn is that he was the second youngest. So back in the day, the second youngest was not the favorite. The oldest actually would inherit everything from the father, which is kind of an interesting story because origin stories, Jacob stole his inheritance from his brother and then has 12 sons. And then his favorite is his second youngest, which isn't supposed to get the inheritance. So what that did was it caused everybody to be really mad. The other 11 brothers were like, who's this dude think he is? And then Joseph has a big mouth, which I do too, and talks way too much and says, guys, I just had a dream that all of you guys were bowing to me. Did not go over well at all. As you can imagine, just like after church, Tori and Allie are probably going to do the same thing to me. They took him and threw him in a well and then found the closest guy passing by and was like, hey, we'll sell him to you for whatever you want to offer us. Get him out of here. So they sold him into slavery. I'm going to be watching my back after church. And Joseph just has downside after downside. And then when you think it's as bad as it could get because he was sold into slavery, he meets a guy named Potiphar. And Potiphar gives him a chance. And you're like, yes, his origin story is looking up. He's in charge of his house. He's doing all the right things. And then Potiphar's wife liked Joseph a little too much. And then Joseph was like, no, not today. And she was like, he tried to steal stuff. He tried to do this and do that. So then he gets thrown in prison. So it went from bad to worse. And then he hit rock bottom, meets a guy, and he's like, hey, if you can get me out of here, that'd be great. So 2 years in prison, he finally gets his chance to get out. And he does that by being able to depict people's dreams, by telling people what their dreams mean. It's a gift that God gave him. And he finally gets out, and his origin story starts to develop and come into focus when he hits that point, because there's a part that happens where his brothers, there's a famine, and his brothers actually come to him and don't even realize it's Joseph, but they come to him to ask for help. They don't realize it's Joseph, and that is when his focus comes in, and his origin story is focused right there, because he could choose to do the wrong thing, but he chose to do the right thing. He chose to love them and have them come in, and God used the bad for good. He used the being put down and sold into slavery and thrown into prison for 2 years to come out and be good. And so he chose to be good, which, since we're talking about origin stories, I wanted to relate this to a superhero. And it's not one that a lot of people know. And his name is Professor X, Charles Xavier. Ooh, sorry, that was the wrong photo. Hey, if you want to see the relation, this is Professor X. Here, hold on, let's click forward. Do you see the resemblance? I mean, it's really close. Oh, that's funny. Oh, I've been waiting so long to show that photo. I've had that in my phone for a couple years. Oh, this is what happens when you talk about me. It's fine, I'm the favorite. But so the really cool correlation with this is Professor X has they made it bigger. That's amazing. I'll let you guys just gaze at that for a second. That's at Walmart. Oh, it's so great. Okay, moving forward. So the really cool correlation with this is Professor X's power is telekinesis. He can read minds, almost like Joseph can depict people's dreams. And when Joseph was betrayed by his brother, Charles Xavier happened the same way. His brother, not his actual brother, but someone he would consider his brother, Magneto, goes against him. And at every turn, people came against Professor X and tried to kill him and capture him and all of these things, but he chose to do the right thing. When push came to shove and he could have done the wrong thing, he chose to love people and love everybody and care for everyone. So it's a really cool correlation there that Joseph and Professor X have the same pathway, and their focus point was doing the right thing even though bad things have come against you. When you have every reason to do the wrong thing, you choose to do the right thing. So sometimes life is unfair. Sometimes people hurt us, but we have to choose to do the right thing. That's what God's called us to do as Christians. We're called to do the right thing. So, cool correlation there, Joseph. So, I want to take one more step backwards because we're talking about origin story, so I want to go back. So, we're going to go back to Abram, which was also Abraham. So, this is Joseph's grandpa, is who we're going to talk about next. And the interesting thing about this, because when you talk about origin stories, there's a lot of like, I've been around for a while. Like, my origin story's past. I did that. I had kids. I've done that life. But the cool thing with Abram's story is that his origin story didn't start till he was 75. Who called you out? So Abram's story started when he was 75, and he was comfortable. He had his wife. They stayed in Haran, and they had sheep and livestock, and they had no children. They just had a peaceful life, doing their own thing. They really wanted kids. They waited, and they wanted kids, and they asked God for that. But, it just sometimes didn't work out. It just wasn't the time, and they were comfortable. They're like, okay, hey, maybe this is what it's going to be. But if we jump into Genesis chapter 12, verse 1 through 3, the Lord said to Abram, go from your country, your people, and your father's family. Go to the land I will show you. So you're comfortable, you're content where you're at, and God instantly is like, leave everything. All the people, where you live, all your stuff, just leave it. And I want you to go where I tell you to go. Then he says, I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great. I will be a blessing to others. I will bless those who bless you. I will put a curse on anyone who puts a curse on you. All nations on earth will be blessed because of you. So at 75, when he is comfortable and content where he's at, God is calling him out to go and move, which I related a lot with this story because if you didn't know, we moved from Michigan about 3.5 years ago, almost 4 years ago. And we left everything. We left our family in Michigan. We left everything because God put a calling on our lives. And we had to be willing to let go of everything to step into what God has called us to do. Was it uncomfortable? Yeah. Were there some growing pains? Yeah. And Abram went through the same thing. Abram didn't always trust God through that process. He tried to rush some things, and he reaped what he sowed. He had a lot of consequences that he had to deal with. Because he tried to rush because God promised him that he would have a son, and he really didn't want to wait, and so they made their own way. Well, that didn't work out great. And so when he is finally patient and he's waiting, in Genesis chapter 15, verse 5 through 6, the Lord took Abram outside and said, look up at the sky, count the stars if you can. Then he said to him, that's how many children will be born into your family. Abram believed the Lord was pleased with Abram because he believed. So Abram's faith made him right with the Lord. So finally, when Abram decides that he can't do it on his own, he gives up almost and puts his focus into faith and focuses on the aspect that God has never led him astray. And were all of those kids born by him and Sarah directly? No. But because of them, we are here. Counting the stars, they made nations out of Abram, and he became Abraham. And I wanted to relate that to a hero, and I was like, man, what can I relate that to? Like, not always doing the right thing or kind of not fitting the mold and not understanding when you go places. And I thought about Captain America, and I was like, okay, Abram was called out of the ordinary, and Steve Rogers was a scrawny kid, and he was ordinary. And to come out of that, Abram had to step into the unknown, and Steve Rogers had to do the same thing. He stepped into an experiment that was completely unknown to him. It was unknown to everybody. Nobody knew what was going to happen. But Abram, when he stepped into faith and trusted the process, he became Abraham and became father of nations. And when Steve Rogers stepped into the unknown, he became Captain America. He became the leader of the Avengers. We know all of these superheroes because of Captain America. So it was a really cool correlation there where I was like, that's interesting. And it made me think that Abraham's origin story of faith begins with just trusting God's plan and not rushing it. Like, looking at everything, we can rush our plans and still get there because God's going to get us there no matter what. But we might have some bumps and scrapes and bruises on the way there because we're trying to rush a plan that really just needs some time to cook. It's like making a really nice meal. Sometimes you got to put it in the oven and let it cook for a little bit. You pull it out too early, it's doughy or it's not cooked all the way, and it's kind of gross. So sometimes we don't know the future. Sometimes God asks us to do hard things, but we have to sometimes just say yes and trust the process. So, origin stories. We've talked about Joseph, the grandson of Abraham. Now we've talked about Abraham. Now we're going to go one more step back, and we're going to talk about a guy that I would say almost everybody knows. Everybody knows Noah. You guys heard of Noah? You guys sure? You guys do not seem positive about that. All right. Noah, what? Noah built the boat. Don't mix him up. I mix Noah and Moses up all the time. I flip them sometimes. I'm like, Moses in the ark, right? And everybody's like, no. Moses walked through the sea. Noah was in the boat. He didn't have the ability to walk through it. So Noah is an interesting story because everything that Noah did is what I would consider absolutely crazy. Because they're in the middle of a drought. So there's no water anywhere. And God is just like, hey man, I want you to build a boat. And not just a boat, a really, really, really big boat. And I mean, so it was 450 feet long, 75 feet wide. That, if you didn't know, that's larger than 2 airplanes. And was supposed to be 45 feet high. So that's about a 4-story building. The length of a little bigger than 2 football fields. Like, that's a really big boat. and they didn't have power tools like we had. Like, they had hammers and nails and, like, that was it. So over the course of time, and like this thing wasn't, when I talked to the kids about this, it was interesting because like we just think like, okay, yeah, like he built the boat, the animals came on, they were in the water, woohoo, and they're done. Well, we didn't process the fact that like it takes a long time to build a boat. Like that didn't just like happen. So when like the Bible talks about how people like went by Noah and like mocked him and stuff like that, that happened for years. So like at this point, Noah's old. So now he's the crazy old guy that's just building a boat in the middle of a desert. Nothing's happening. And then he's got his family in on this thing. So I kind of think of like if my dad got called by God to build a boat, like we'd all be like, okay. And we'd start building a boat. But everybody would think we'd be really crazy. Like, can you imagine pulling into church next week and we just have half of a boat built out here? And he's like, it's going to flood. like you'd be like, what? Be like, yeah, you know. So Noah's the crazy old guy building a boat. And also, a.k.a. Pastor Jeff, building a boat. And all these people are just mocking him over and over and over. And then I'm assuming his family was a little frustrated because I would be a little frustrated too. It would be like, Dad, you know, maybe we should talk about this because you're just like building a really big boat and everybody's mocking us. But God had a plan. And Noah had to trust the plan. And eventually he builds the boat. All the animals get on the boat, close the door, and the flood starts happening. So it rains for 40 days, 40 nights, and the flood waters cover the earth for 150 days. God was making a point. And he wanted to make sure everybody that wasn't on the boat was not swimming. So he made sure that the boat was the only thing that was good after that. So after that, the floodwaters come down. It actually took, I want to say, I was reading it, it's a year or two for the floodwaters to come all the way down to the point where they could exit the ark. She's talking about a really long journey of just trusting God and having faith in the plan. And, you know, I was wanting to relate this to a hero like the other ones. And I was like, man, who can I relate this to? And so my first thought was Aquaman. I was like, Aquaman's pretty cool. He deals with water. Like, he swims in water. But when I dug into Aquaman's story, because I really didn't know a lot, Aquaman is the king of the seas. And it actually kind of lined up because Noah was kind of like the king of the ark. Everything that was on his ark was the thing that was going to survive the floodwaters that covered the entire earth. And Noah was mocked, and Aquaman was mocked because he was an outsider. Aquaman was part human and part water person. Yeah, what you said, whoever said it. Yeah. and so he was mocked by other people because he wasn't perfect for what he was doing, and neither was Noah. And so when the ark finally landed on top of the mountain, they finally were able to come out, and God gave the promise of the rainbow. And that was the origin story of Noah. Noah helped God grab the things that needed to be so he could restart on the earth, because there was so much sin. There was so much sin that God had to wipe the slate clean and restart, and Noah was the tool that helped him get there. So Noah had a bigger purpose, and his whole story began with just trusting God and having faith that God's plan was the right plan. And sometimes people don't understand. They don't understand what God's plan is. I don't. I could not tell you 100% certain when I first started this journey of becoming a pastor that I had it all figured out. I had no idea that I was going to be at this point in time. I pretty much, when I was in high school, I wanted to be a graphic designer. That was my purpose for my life. I didn't want to be a pastor. This is hard. And all you guys just stare at me, and I'm like, got to say something to like make you guys amen and stuff. Like, that's hard. And so I didn't know, but I had to trust the plan that God had in place. And were there bumps? Yeah. And were there times that I had to just have more faith? Yeah. And there were times of sitting and praying and just like, God, I don't understand. And people are making fun of me, and people are poking fun at me, and people are saying I'm not good enough, and they're saying that I'm crazy. And God still had a way of getting me to this place where I'm at now, in front of you guys, talking and teaching you guys about Jesus and relating it to superheroes. But God uses us in different ways, because in a way that I can do something, somebody else can't do it. So we have to sometimes just trust the process. And like Noah, we have to have faith in trusting even when it doesn't make any sense. We have to just trust the process. And so this leads me into the last thing I want to talk about, and it's going back to the beginning, because this is where sin got really bad, was in the story of Noah, where God had to wipe it clean. But if we go back another step, it's when God created everything. So Joseph is the son of Jacob, which was the son of Abraham, which is a descent from Noah, because Noah and his whole family that were on the ark were the only ones that survived. And the descendant of Noah comes all the way back to creation, when everything is made. So in the beginning, God created everything, heavens and the earth. And I'm not going to go through all of that, but a really cool breakdown of how God was writing the story and had the plan the whole time and was crafting the origin story. If you look into the days of creation, there's 6 of them, and on the 7th day he rested. Days 1, 2, and 3, he creates the realms for things to live in. He creates heaven and earth. He creates the sky, he creates land. And then days 4, 5, and 6, he creates the things to fill those. So the days are in pairs, almost like pairs that went onto the ark. So days 1 and 4 to go together, 2 and 5 go together, 3 and 6 go together. So God is carefully crafting this story, this origin story of everything. He's crafting through the whole time. And there's purpose for every little thing that he does. And on the 6th day, he creates man, and I would say that that was his greatest creation, because we were made in his image. That was the beginning of humanity's origin story. And in Genesis chapter 2, verses 16 through 17, the Lord gave the man a command. He said, "You may eat from the tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. If you do, you will certainly die." So there are 2 trees in the garden in this origin story. There's the tree of life, and there's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God says you can eat from anything, but don't eat from the knowledge of good and evil. Stay away from that tree. Don't eat that. You can eat everything else. You can eat from everything else in the entire garden, but don't eat that. Then sin started to make its entrance. The bad guy of the origin story, of the story that we're still fighting today, made his grand entrance as a serpent. The devil came in and tempted the woman to eat from the tree, which she did. And then Adam ate from the tree. They both did. That is when things started to take a turn. That's when sin was introduced into the world. So the sin that was bad, where God had to restart with Noah, this is where it started. This was sin's origin story. Everything has an origin story. It says that Adam and Eve noticed that they were naked, so they took leaves and sewed them together for clothes. Once they had done this, they heard the sound of walking in the distance, and they knew that it was God, so they hid from God. So God's best creation, the origin story of humanity, hid from God because the origin of sin entered the world. It says, God, knowing that what Adam and Eve had already done, asked them what happened. And instantly, they start trying to blame. It wasn't that they did something wrong. It was, oh, well, the serpent tempted me and they messed me up. And it just progresses, and God gives a list of things that are going to change now because sin entered the world. And in Genesis chapter 3, verse 22, the Lord said, just like one of us, the man can now tell the difference between good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out and pick from the tree of life and eat it. If he does, he will live forever. So the origin story of sin, and if we go all the way back, and I'm closing, Cameron. If you go all the way back to the beginning, it's the origin of sin, and it's the origin of man when God was writing our entire story. And when sin entered the world, to make something not permanent, God had to rewrite a little bit of the story. So if they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and it broke them, it broke the perfect creation that Adam and Eve were. When God created Adam and Eve, they were perfect. They were exactly the way that God wanted them to be. But when they ate from the tree of knowledge, it made them broken. And so before that, humans and us and we could make the broken permanent, God had to remove them from the garden, because if they would have ate from the tree of life, it would have made the broken permanent. So in this moment, I believe, and this is my belief, God started rewriting the story, because then he sent his son to die on the cross. So from the beginning was the origin of the end. Because if he wouldn't have kicked out Adam and Eve out of the garden, it would have made a bad thing permanent, and there would have been no purpose for Jesus to even come to the earth. But God decided to write a new origin when he removed them from the garden, because he sent his son to save them from the brokenness. Because if they would have eaten from the tree of life, it would have made it permanent. There would have been no purpose. So the creation story, the origin of creation, shows us that we can trust God no matter what. Because no matter what happens, he is going to make the plan work. He is going to help us rely on faith. If we don't have faith and we don't trust God, what are we here for? We can't bail every time something gets hard. We can't. Joseph went through everything that he went through because he trusted God's plan. And Abram made bad choices, but he trusted God through it, and he got to where he's at. Noah, the same way. People mocked Noah. Kids at school, you might get mocked for being a Christian. It might happen, but who cares? If God has called us to do or be who we are, that's what we should be. So my what now for today is actually another question. What's your excuse? Because every hero has an origin story, and every origin story starts with a step. So what is your excuse for not taking the step that you need to take to start walking in the plans that God has promised you? My excuse when I had to deal with that was I just didn't think I was good enough. That was my excuse. I'm not good enough. There are people way better than me. I watched my dad do this. I watched my uncle do this. I watched Cameron do it. I was like, I'm not good enough for this. I'm not cut out. I've done way too many things wrong in my life. But I still had to get to the point where I took a step. That's all it is just a step. You take a step in the right direction. Everything was a step. Joseph had to take the step to believing that God was going to watch him. He took that step. Was that step sometimes in negative things? Yeah. Joseph took a step into slavery. He took a step into jail. But then he took a step into kingdom. Abram took a step when he left everything that he knew because it was comfortable, and took a step into the unknown to find things and to find ultimately what he wanted. God knew what he wanted. He knows the desires of our heart. He knew that Abram wanted a family. He wanted a son. But he had to take a step. And if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me on this, Abraham is the one that took his son up to the mountain and was going to kill him for Jesus or for God. Yeah. So ultimately, God tested that same faith again to make sure that he was on the right path. God asked Abraham to take his son up to the mountain and sacrifice him for God, because he knows the things that we come from, but he wanted to make sure that we're still on the right path, that we're willing to take the step that he asks us to take. Noah had to take a step and start building an ark. Did it make sense? No. Did it make sense that God was going to send 2 of every single animal? No. But he took the step because he had faith. And I think ultimately, God took a step in the story of creation by making us, knowing that we were probably going to mess up, which made him take a step in the origin story of sending his son to die on a cross for us that messed everything up. God's origin story of creation just keeps moving and moving and moving, and it's all tied together from the beginning to the end. If you go into the Bible and read the end of the Bible, it actually talks about the beginning of the Bible. It's really crazy. So my final question for you in this crazy family Sunday of confetti and superheroes and funny photos and laughter and games, what will be your step? What step are you going to take? Because you can't keep living the way you're living. And if you think you're too old, you're not too old. Abram was 75. Y'all just starting life. And if you think you're too young and you want to live your life, don't waste your life. Don't make it difficult for God to get you to be on your path. Just take a step. I'm not asking you to devote your life and read the Bible every day and pray every day and make a crazy life change. Just take a step in the right direction. So I'm going to pray. And I want you to just think about what that step is while I pray. Pray to God to ask what that step is. Maybe that step is getting out of something that you're comfortable in. Maybe that step is changing the people you hang out with and changing some scenery. Or maybe that step is into some rough times because God's going to bring you out better on the other side. There's no easy answer to your origin story. But if you're willing to take a step, God will meet you there and will walk with you through the rest of it. If everybody can bow your heads. God, I thank you for bringing us here. I thank you for helping us to have a great day. I thank you for putting breath in my lungs. I thank you for everything that you've given me and everything you're going to give me. But God, I just pray right now for everybody in this room and even myself of where is a place that I can take a step. And God, I just pray whatever that step is, you make it known. And God, I pray for those steps that are going to be difficult. I pray that you meet them there. You meet them at that step. And when someone takes that step, they feel your love. And God, I just pray that you challenge us to do this and to take a step and to believe and to have faith in everything that you're going to provide for us. Because of the things we can see, we can have faith in the things that we can't. And I just ask you to be with us through this week and through the rest of the year, and to help us have a great life of trusting you with every step that we take. And I just ask this in your name, Jesus. Amen.